Let's talk about one of the most underestimated traps in any career story. It doesn't show up when you fail. It descends the moment you succeed too soon. You've been told that success carves out a wider path, right? That it grants you the freedom to do anything. But here's the truth no one talks about. Success early on may actually be your biggest trap. But the system operates on a completely different algorithm. It will instantly harden your early win into a baseline, a benchmark you're expected to carry for the rest of your professional life. Today, we're dismantling why being recognized too early often means you prematurely lose the right to ever be ordinary. All right, stop for a second. Think about this, or look for it. When a young colleague gets widespread praise for one spectacular achievement, a make or break project, a major award, what change usually hits them next? A, more freedom to experiment and explore new directions. Finally, they've earned the chance to be creative. Or B, more significant responsibilities, but with added pressure and limited space for failure. But then, what's the true cost of success? C, an invisible pressure where even small fluctuations are scrutinized and the fear of slipping becomes overwhelming. But what happens when that pressure starts to define your every move? Drop your answer in the comments. By the end, I'll show you how, behind that change, the system quietly redefines success as confinement. Let's break down how this works. First, identity recoding, from high potential to verified asset. Picture Alan, a young quantitative analyst making a name in Cambridge. During a period of severe market chaos, a model he built performs a miracle. It saves the firm from massive losses. Overnight, he goes from promising new hire to the genius trader. Before this, his growth curve was allowed to have dips. A failed strategy could be called a valuable lesson. After, the system does a hard recode. He's no longer a variable in development. He's now tagged as a verified high-performance asset. What follows isn't just a bigger bonus. It's an invisible shackle. Every single thing he does from now on will be automatically compared to that one genius moment he created. If you've ever felt that after one big success, people became less tolerant of you just being normal, type baseline below. Second, the revocation of the learning permit. Why you're suddenly not allowed to still be learning. This is one of the cruelest side effects. The system unilaterally revokes your license to learn. Before a landmark success, making mistakes is part of the process. The cost is written off as R&D or training expense. Once you set an exceptional benchmark, suddenly that same behavior gets a whole new price tag. A simple misstep, now it's seen as a serious flaw. Needing time to adapt, now it's a sign of declining performance. But why? What is the true cost of this perfect performance expectation? We'll reveal that in just a moment. It's no longer seen as exploration. It risks being labeled as performance decline or capability in question. Look at Hollywood. A young director with a stunning debut faces a brutal reality. Their second film, no matter its genre or ambition, will be relentlessly measured against that first breakthrough. Any shift in style, any narrative experiment carries an amplified risk. Why? Because the system, the market, the critics, the money has already anchored them to one exceptionally high point on the chart. Third, the birth of maintenance anxiety, where freedom gets replaced by the consistency expectation. Early success doesn't lead to lasting ease. It breeds a unique professional mindset, maintenance anxiety. Your core goal subtly shifts from breakthrough and growth to maintenance and defense. You start cautiously weighing any choice that introduces uncertainty. Because you're not just carrying the risk of the task itself, you're carrying the risk of disrupting the narrative consistency of your own success. Try a new direction? The system whispers, then what was the point of your previous success? Try a different method? The system grows wary. Is he hitting a wall? Your freedom of action gets funneled into a narrow channel of excellence, defined entirely by your past. Your greatest fear stops being a failure to reach new heights. It becomes the fear of slipping from the peak you already occupy, even just a little. This isn't new logic. It's ancient evaluation, now automated. The ancient strategist Han Feizi, discussing the technique of form and name, touched on this core paradox. Once the name is fixed, the thing is not expected to move. A modern translation, once the system, through one spectacular success, fixes upon you the name, the label of excellence, it will expect you to forever live at the reality, the performance level that matches that name. The system doesn't comprehend phases of explosive performance. It only logs repeatable output. Your early win isn't for the system a milestone to surpass. It's a quality standard you must now continually verify. Han Feizi warned that a minister who reveals his full capability too early loses all future room to explain any fluctuation. Because the ruler, the system, now sees him as a known, stable output unit. Any decline suggests the unit itself is faulty, not the circumstances. Let's look at a real shadow, this time from the city of London. Jennifer, once the youngest female managing director at a top-tier investment bank. Before turning 30, she led a cross-border deal hailed as a textbook transaction. Instant industry stardom. But that prematurely immense success cast a very long shadow over everything that followed. Every deal she handled afterwards, regardless of its complexity, was measured against that one legendary transaction. When she tried to pivot towards strategic investments, a field that requires long-term nurturing and has uncertain early returns, the internal skepticism mounted. This isn't consistent with Jennifer's quick strike style. Has she lost her edge? Jennifer found herself trapped in a success persona of her own making. She couldn't slow down for deeper strategic thought. She couldn't venture into innovative but risky projects. She couldn't even publicly admit to not knowing something. Her genius label had become a transparent cage. Every step forward required a painful trade-off between maintaining the genius consistency and exploring what she genuinely found interesting. So, back to that initial question. If you picked C, you see the mechanism now. The biggest cost of early success isn't higher external expectations. It's the systemic removal of your margin for error, your space for exploration. You transition from being a variable with infinite potential to a constant that must consistently output one specific value. The trap of early success isn't just about glory, it's about something far worse. It strips you of the very freedoms you once took for granted. Your right to experiment, to fail, to be uncertain. What if I told you this trap has a long-term consequence you might not even realize yet? You'll find out, but only if you stick around. This reveals another key mechanism within Module D. Long-term structural consequences, how the system uses your past peak to constrain your future range of motion. But let's push this further. What if you don't just succeed early? What if you grow extremely fast? What if you rise like a rocket, disrupting the existing hierarchy in record time? The system's wariness of speed is far more acute than its appreciation for height. Our next lecture in this module digs into a more dynamic and potentially more dangerous feedback loop. It's called How Fast Growth Attracts Resistance. We'll reveal why advancing too quickly within an organization triggers its innate defense mechanisms, why your rapid ascent can quietly activate invisible friction all around you, and why sometimes slowing down isn't a sign of weakness. It's an unspoken piece of survival wisdom. If you've ever felt that the faster you charge ahead, the more covert obstacles you face, the next session will give you the lens to understand why. Subscribe. Turn on notifications. We're going to decode the system's deep-seated anxiety about the speed of change.